Welcome back to the Real Estate Rat Pack Radio Show with Chris, Joe, and Rob. The crew is taking your calls, so dial in at 1-800-808-5548.
And we are back.
I think we better start working on them now so we can get them back again.
I would agree. I would absolutely agree. It's so much fun.
It's so much fun and such great energy. And I've known Bruce for a while. This was actually my first opportunity to meet Diane. I've known Bruce for a while. And
I've seen your picture a long time, though.
Doesn't do him justice, does it?
Not at all.
Yeah, I was a little younger back then.
He's looking good in a tuxedo here, ladies and
I
gentlemen.
tell people the older and uglier I get, the nicer I start dressing. I'm not old. I'm seasoned.
You are seasoned.
That's right.
One of the things is words go a long way. So I tell Rob all the time to stop referring himself as old. He is a seasoned individual.
I am a seasoned.
I love it.
So we're talking about the hypermarket, and Bruce was talking on the break about. Well, tell us what you're talking about when you're talking about values and you're trying to explain to somebody about.
When you look at a
pricing.
shifting market, right, from a buyer to a seller, we're not just a seller, we're a hyper seller local market. In other words, when we got to talking on the break about pricing, when you look at pricing now, when you look at the comps and the sales, you can't say, well, I'm comping out the area, right? We were talking about an analogy of a condo in which the building in which the condo is in had multiple sales.
Correct.
That becomes the hyper-local comp that they're going to use.
Right.
Now, if there's no comps available, then you start to branch out a little wider with like-valued properties.
Right.
In a hyper-local market, you've got to look at that valuation. The problem is sellers are saying, but you don't understand. I've got the finest granite. I've got the finest this, and I'm worth $20,000 more. And you're like, you don't understand. They're going to look at the comp.
Right. Your house is special, just like everyone else's.
It's a castle.
So that now we have a new acronym with HLC.
HLC.
Hyperlocal comp.
HLC.
There we go. So,
Yeah, but you're right, Bruce. I mean, one of the things, because we were talking between the break, we're talking about appraisals. One of the things we're starting to see is that as the market has really lit up in Houston, and we're not talking about we've been in this market for 5 years. We're really talking about a year ago, a little over a year ago, the market started getting really hot, right?
Yes.
And so one of the things that's happened over that period of time, and we're seeing it on all sides, is as a market gets really hot the way it is, it takes a little while to catch up. Comps take a while to catch up. Appraisal values take a while to catch up, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And when I say a while, it can sometimes take years to catch up because that data is not always ported over there, right? But the problem is that a lot of times an individual who's putting their home on the market, they're looking at what their neighbor did just now, or they're looking about something else that they see. And as we mentioned, what ends up happening, the appraiser is an individual who's just going to look, as you mentioned, the immediate comp in the area, independent of what upgrades you have, independent of how good that granite is compared to a friend of yours that lives 5 miles away. And so we're seeing some of those things happen like that. And it's a very good opportunity for us right now, and that's what the show is about as well, is it's about education. It's about individuals who are listening today, agents who are listening today. It's still about education. It's about making sure we price it right. Understand is, man, we all want to get deals done. We all do. I know you do, Bruce. I know you do, Diane. I know I do, right? I know Rob does. We all want to get deals done. But it still has to be done in a way that is correct and appropriate according to the market and the requirements and the conditions associated with it.
Right.
I like to bring our sellers into my office as a second appointment, after I see their home, and show them the market so they can see, touch, and feel and see a large screen on HAR. What's active? What are they competing with? What's gone into contract? What's the buyer said yes to in option pending, pending sale, and pending?
Right.
And what is closed since January 1 of 2014?
Right.
So here's what the facts are.
Right.
I'm not just presenting it on paper, but look at it with me. And I find that helps them to understand when they get to really see. Also opens the seller's eyes to how presentation and how things show online and how critical those photos are.
Yes.
And how critical the staging is.
We've had that discussion before because I still see $1 million listings that someone has taken with their iPhone.
Oh, gee.
It's like, seriously?
But the camera's so good.
There's nothing wrong with the iPhone camera, but you know what? When you get into that market, or actually any market.
Any market, yeah.
We emphasize always hire a professional, not only a professional realtor, but when you are getting a professional realtor, make sure they're hiring professional people.
Photographers
and stagers. That can put that listing in the best possible light to make that first impression.
A perfect example of that was the other day we were doing some photos here in the studio, and we had I was taking with my iPhone, and we had a professional photographer take pictures with the camera. Same exact area, same exact people, et cetera, but the photographer photos look so much clearer, crisp, the correct tone to them, correct angle to them, et cetera. And so that makes a huge difference. But as you mentioned right there, buyers are no longer local. Buyers are international. And when I say that is, an individual might be local here, but he's traveling. He's going to Singapore on business, right? He's traveling, somewhere throughout the United States. They're moving into the city. They want to see it. That's the first impression a lot of times when they go to HAR or one of the other websites out there. They're looking and seeing, and that's that first impression. It has to be right.
Huge.
We talk this being about education. Once again, as we look at a property, there's one thing about how you stage it, how you show it, and everything else. But as an agent, as a professional real estate agent, have you gone to trainings that HAR has on these different variables? Have you gone to trainings with your mortgage lender about what an underwriter does? Have you gone to trainings with a title company so that you as the professional sitting before a client can walk them through all of these nuances, and they're looking at you going, you know what, this is why I'm hiring you. You are a professional, you bring value, you're helping me understand what's happening through this process. So the education piece is you must go to training and education. You must learn the market of the moment. You have to be able to talk about the market of the moment, or you begin to get overwhelmed by a client who's doing more research than you are.
You should be explaining the moving pieces before you get into the moving pieces.
Perfect.
That really is it. And again, I remember one saying all the time about staging is that the way you sell a home is not the way you live in a home.
Right.
No, that's true. Not at all.
If you're going to go sell your car, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to go empty all that stuff out of the back seat. You're going to wax it, polish it, and keep it absolutely immaculate.
You go, wow, why didn't I do it like that before?
Exactly. Well, if you've ever been around enough realtors, you know sometimes our office is in the back floorboard.
I think it's a lot of managing expectations. And if you can manage expectations from your clients, both buyers and sellers, and explain the process. So if it's a listing, explain the process and show them what that 1 to 4 family that they're going to see when they get their first offer. Explain that whole contract when you're doing the listing contract.
Absolutely.
And then the expectations are set. They understand what's going to be faced. And I find that goes so much smoother.
It does. They say, like, Diane, gosh, you told me about this, and here we are in.
Right.
And especially when you talk about inspections and things like that.
Wait a minute. What's that option period thing?
Yeah, what's that option period? What's that? This house sounds like it's falling down. I actually had that. I always had that interview. Basically, it's like when you do an inspection, it's not a love sonnet, and it's going to sound like that house is falling down.
Right.
They said and then I started explaining, things about that wasn't coded at the time the house was built.
Sure.
But you can have that little dialogue for a lot of components in the real estate transaction.
Boy, the pre-dialogue is huge, and especially in this market, if an agent would take the time to explain, there is a probability that emotions might get into this equation. So let's just talk about them up front and manage them, right?
Yeah.
So if you do that, when it arises, a buyer that's coming in and saying, I want this, and this, and the seller's going, I'm not going to do it. We go, remember that little discussion we had about emotion?
Well, because I've had them sitting there. I mean, because obviously, we're all part of this process, right? So whether it be financing or the real estate agent, et cetera, we all hear these stories, right? And I never forget, had this one probably about a month ago. She was sitting in my office because we're getting the transaction on the new one. She goes, I can't believe you're trying to make me change everything on my property. 5 years ago when I put that in, that was the top of the line. And that should, and so a lot of times we get that emotional attachment to something that we did that was for us.
Right.
But it's not for the next
Harvest
person.
Gold and avocado green is not going to work.
Yeah.
Well, that shows how old I am, doesn't it?
Seasoned.
I've always stated to somebody, when we talked to him, I said, at the time we sit down and really talk about it, I said, so are we in agreement that you want to sell your home? And they say, yes. I said, no, 100% agreement. You want to sell your home. Yes. Then at this point forward, it's no longer your home. It is a real estate transaction.
It's your house.
It's a house that we want to get the best value for you to get you onto your next one. So when we make suggestions to you, please do not take them personally, because I know grandmother and all of the cousins and everything that represent the whole wall around, And so if you can get them to agree that they are now moving forward from home to a house sale, it helps through the emotions of
That's
it.
a great idea. I'm the photograph Nazi and the refrigerator magnet Nazi.
Oh, yeah.
Get them out of there.
Got to go in. Yeah.
and anyone from the Nazi parties, please don't call me and complain that I.
Oh, yeah.
Got nothing, huh?
Got nothing on that one, Rob. Got nothing on that. I'm letting you hang yourself on that one.
It's okay. It's exactly. But yeah, you got to depersonalize that, and it's going to transfer from a home to a house. I think that's a great way to say it.
Well, you need to know if they're a motivated seller. Do you really want to sell? Because a lot of people are coming out in this market because it's a hyper.
They're testing the market.
Let's just test it. So let's put another $100,000 on it, or whatever the number might be, and let's try it. So kind of careful with that, because the try-fors, and then you're not successful, then you're going to have a hiccup on the MLS to archive in the future.
You know, we're kind of getting towards the end of the show. Can you believe it's almost over? And
no, I'm having fun.
Yeah, just when
we're just getting
relaxed
started.
and getting started. But you know, what would you like people to know out there about you, the Kink team, and the market?
I think to know about the Kink team is that we're a team. We've got a specialist in every place. I'm the listing department, the closing department, operational manager, our 3 buyers agents, Carol and I, who are the listing specialists, and we do a lot of teamwork together. So when someone works with us, they're going to get touched by a lot, all 10 of us, and now 11 of us with the new executive
You
assistant.
have some seasoned people on that too.
And yeah, you know what? Most of my team's been with me 9-10 years. So it's a family. It's really a family, and we all work hard together. And the market in the Woodlands is hot. It's a great time to buy. It's a great time to sell. And if you're just thinking about it, it's a good time to come in and get a market analysis. Come understand the market. Come meet with us, and we'd love to help you.
And how can we reach you?
281-364-4828, and thekinkteam.com. Info@thekinkteam.com is our site.
Awesome.
That is awesome.
And Bruce,
How about
I'm
you,
going to
Bruce?
ask you that same question.
Listen, I tell people all the time, we are so blessed with the Houston market. There is abundance. So agents, people out there listening, there is abundance. We are creating more jobs. We are bringing more activity to this city than many places around the world. What I need you to do is understand, be educated, understand what you have before you. HAR is a brilliant access point for information. Learn the market of the moment. Learn what's moving in price bands in your area. I've always said, don't be the king of just units. Find out what's moving. Move yourself up in price point so that you can do well for your client and for your company. But understand we have a blessed market here. Know it, be a professional, and play nice in the sandbox.
Absolutely. How can we reach everybody over at the Met?
We're located mine, Bruce Kink, at kwmet.com, bkink at kwmet.com, or you can just go to KellerWilliamsMetropolitan.com.
That is awesome. One of the things we always leave off is a great quote from Teresa Kennedy, actually,
Yes.
from your organization up there. And today is no different. It says, show respect even to people who don't deserve it, not as a reflection of their character, but as a reflection of yours.
I love it.
I think that is
That's
so
awesome.
appropriate what we've been talking about today, because it's really about the character that we all represent in a real estate transaction that is extremely, extremely important. Again, I want to put a big shout out to Capital Title for bringing the Kink team on here
Thank
today.
you.
Also to Creekside Limousines and Bryant Clark over there. Great individual. Until next week, stay tuned. We will see you then.
And you've been listening to the Real Estate Rat Pack. The question is, who's Frank, who's Sammy, who's Dean, and who's the other guy?
Chris is
I'm
Frank,
I'm
he's
Dean.
Dean, and I'm Sammy.
Yes, that right. Yeah.
So tune in to the really big